Sure. We may not have any different feelings towards Kanye West than what we had the last time we talked about him, but we haven't talked about him at all because he hasn't come up in the news.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
If he comes up in the news and it's something supremely relevant to what we're talking about, then we're going to bring that back, but we're not talking about it because it's not something to talk about because there's so many other things to talk about.
But Dr. Umar was cooking on Art of Dialogue.
Okay.
Actually made a good point.
Did he?
Yeah, he did. You know, I fool with Dr. Umar when he's in his bag and he's making sense. He'll veer off the path a little bit. He'll circle back home.
You know, mess around and say the wrong word about the Prince of Pan-Africanism.
Yeah, and he makes sure that y'all know that and that he's kin to Frederick Douglass. He's going to make sure that you say that in every interview. But he brought up a good point when he said, why is it that during the celebration of the hip hop's 50th anniversary, there are no conversations about how detrimental hip hop music has been to black culture and the ramifications that have come from it, the negative influence over the past 50 years. He said everything is positive from a celebratory standpoint. All these big concerts, shows, but there's been no dialogues, no forums about things on the opposite side, hip hop's influence over the past 50 years.
Because that's not what you do with somebody on their birthday.
That doesn't mean we can't talk about it, though.
I mean, but just imagine if it was my 50th birthday and there was somebody that came up and be like, remember that one time you stole the Jell-O from, remember that time
from MCL?
From MCL. Remember that time you went to jail for, like, don't bring that up on my birthday. And plus, we have had these conversations because, you know, like part of the,
you've seen forums about this?
I feel like part of, you know, all these documentaries, they don't just gloss over and say everything's been all good. You know, look, even in the documentary that we were not credited for, the ladies' first situation.
Which one? The first one? Oh, sorry. There's two. Yeah. Sorry.
You know, they still don't shy away from the misogyny and some of the hurtful ways in which men have treated women, not only in the industry but through the actual art. I think that we've had those discussions.
I think Dr. Umar,
we're just not going to get it. You know, why am I going during hip hop's 50th anniversary going to gather a bunch of people into a room and say this is why hip hop stinks and this is all the things we've done wrong? Why would I even go to that? I'm here to celebrate this culture, and I understand it's not perfect.
Make it better.
To make it better
is a good argument.
But at the same time, like, we've had these I feel like we've had these conversations during the course of this 50-year celebration. Maybe it's just because Dr. Umar has not been at center of them, and maybe they didn't call him and tell so he could say these things. But I feel like we've had these conversations.
I think Dr. Umar is coming from the standpoint of the heavy dialogue panel type discussions. It could be pros and cons of hip hop or whatever, but
I'm sure these are happening on college campuses around the whole United States.
Could be.
Yeah,
we've had conversations about it.
I mean, we have, but you know.
So I don't think it stops at us though. We've had those conversations.
Yeah.
He actually also mentioned that rappers who are of age now, who have become older, live in gated communities. The kids go to private schools.
As they should.
And they still rap about the things that they came from, yet they've moved out of the situation that they came from. Now, contradictory that is.
No, it's not. We've had that conversation too, because it goes back to you don't say that about.
He really was standing on that one.
You don't say that about people that write movies. These rich people that write these movies about crime and all this, that, and the other. You don't say that to them while they live in their gated communities. But I can't keep telling you my story behind my gates.
Does everybody that writes a movie about crime come from crime? I wouldn't say so.
Well, they can say it was part of their influence. Like Martin Scorsese has done how many movies about the mob?
Come on, man.
And no one says, no one, now he's done other movies since then, but no one says, oh, geez, another mob story.
Right.
Sure they do.
You know, so it's
they applaud it. They can't wait for another one.
Yeah. In fact, they get mad at
Martin Scorsese
when, you know, he does something that is not mob related or something that involves crime.
Yeah.
You know,
I don't think it's a one-of-one comparison. I don't think so. I don't think it's that.
Well, it's not a one-of-one, but it's very similar. It's from the same vein, because if I'm talking about what I've been through, if I'm talking about it in the past tense, not saying that I'm still doing this stuff, I'm still literally telling my story, right?
I think a better comparison would be another music genre as opposed to movies.
Okay, so let's talk about, since we've been talking about country, people are upset because the wife and dog left. How many wives and dogs have left them?
I don't think situationally. I think the wife and the dog can leave even if you've had a pretty good life.
And how many bottles of whiskey and beer can I drink?
If you're already an alcoholic, it stays with you for life.
But what if I live in a gated community? I don't get to do this stuff anymore?
You can still do it, but you still talk about it, right?
Yeah.
Which is your argument, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But I got lost in the metaphors.
I mean, I like where he was going with the conversation. You can have it, right? I'm not saying rain on the parade. He didn't come off like that, but he just found it odd that there have not been that many discussions.
I mean, this is Dr. Umar, though.
So
Umar,
he was just being extra.
I mean, he says things
role.
to get a rise.
That's
he
his
wants
role.
to get a rise.
There has to be somebody that is just always miserable that has to outline these things. I honestly don't even mean that in a negative way.
No, I see where you're going.
But it's just like somebody that's going to always highlight the detriment of what's going on everywhere. And that's just his role. That's what he does. And I wouldn't expect anything different from him. So, I mean, I'm sure he cares very much about what I have to say.
He should maybe make a class at his school.
Yeah.
About this.
Yeah, his school.
That people can come check out.
Yeah. But I don't know. I think it's a valid conversation.
That's all I'm saying.
But
it can be talked about.
But at the same time, I think I gotta agree with Jay here.
Moore.
Like, we're not gonna. This isn't the greatest hits of all the bad things that happen on your birthday. You know what I mean? Like, and we are a part of hip hop culture. Right. And we talk about this stuff every week.
We do.
You know what I mean? And there are other people that talk about it every week. It's not like it goes away. It's a constant thing. Whenever something happens, we talk about it further. I think you can do both. I think you can talk about the great things and also talk, highlight the negative things when they occur, but you don't want to dwell on them at the same time.
Especially not on my birthday.
I mean, exactly.
I want my cake.
I want my cake.
Yeah, I like cake. So
and ice cream.
I like both. But it's one of those things. I think there's some validity to what he's saying, but at the same time, I think
tying it into
the
50th 50th anniversary conversation maybe is the part that's the part that's not adding up.
It's like he's running with maybe he's not running with the idea that it's not happening. I think what he wants, based upon what you have said, is he wants intentionality behind these things. Like we have these hip hop celebrations, these concerts, these tours. Where is the intentionality in hip hop that is going behind and saying, all right, cool, here are also the negative effects. Let's do a recap and let's see if we can figure out how to attack these things. Right. I don't necessarily think there's anything wrong with that at all. To be honest, I don't think that one constitutes, like, I don't think you make that argument against each other like that.
No, but I don't think it's not happening already though. Candace Owens had a host, and I don't agree with her a lot of times. I mean, everything she said about that situation, I was clapping my hands.
I mean, broken clock is right twice a day.
There you go.
That was one of those days.
And it was definitely one of those days because, I mean, these conversations are being had. It's just not why, like Jay said, on the 50th birthday or something, why should that be the only thing that we're talking about? We're pointing the stuff out as it comes out.
Yeah, and the thing is,
I like what Lone.
hip hop since its inception has always been criticized loudly by people in halls of power who have no actual care about the people who in the culture that it comes from. Like I said, from people within the culture who may have grown up and now they see things differently. Shout out to D1, who has been very, vocal lately and has made a lot of sense. And I'm glad, I'm always happy when somebody from inside the culture who has certain criticism because it does come from a place of love.
Right.
I even though I talked about this, how like C. Dolores Tucker, Reverend Calvin Butts, we're both very critical of hip hop, but it came, like I said, it came from a different place where was what they said wrong, but I didn't come from the place of love that I would like to see.
That's the Candace Owens effect. She's not coming from place of love.
Yeah.
On this particular instance, she was.
I think I have.
I watched
agree with
it.
Terry because
I watched it.
There is something in this one case because we
I don't think she ever does.
I think she's
a 100% grifter.
I
all
think
the time.
right here we were talking about a child. When she has these other criticisms specifically
but she doesn't
of
care
black
about
people,
children.
she doesn't care about.
Lone, I think this was a one-off. I only like Candace
this particular
but I think this was
segment was coming from a good place.
I think this is a one-off, bro.
I
don't think so. And I haven't even seen it because she's never right.
But yeah, I forget what I was even saying. But I'm just saying, like with hip hop, I mean, I know what I'm saying now because hip hop has always been so open for criticism from the mainstream media, from the media within hip hop, from feminist media. Everything has always been something to try to tear down hip hop. not even tear down, but just criticize and sometimes give criticism that, once I say again, comes from a place of love. So during the 50th anniversary, look, can we just honestly, can we take a break and just celebrate the good things and the way it's brought us all together?
Yeah.
You know,
No.
considering all 50 years leading up to it, there's been something that happened to where there was somebody who decided they were going to make a name for themselves, being critical of hip hop or creating, whether it be the respectability politics of the 80s, the anti-gangster, you know, ism, if you will, of the 90s, you know, the part where it's like we were complaining about the misogyny in the 2000s, you know, when BET and Cut comes along. Once again, we have a timeline of criticism for hip hop.
For every single thing in the entire existence of the world is like that as well, too. I don't think it gets excluded.
Well, I mean, but at the same time, I completely understand why people want to, you know, once the July 4th comes around, I understand why people want to be critical of America, because it's like, we didn't get here with just clean hands.
It's a good time. It's a good time to talk about it, I think, is for a lot of people. Because, I mean, let's be real. We are a people, and I don't just mean Americans, but I just mean in general, we're a modern people that the stuff that we talk about now that takes our attention is what's right in front of our face, because there's just so much information all the time. So it's like, okay, hip hop's 50th. This is a time for me to, I have a little bit of spotlight to talk about whatever I want to talk about on this particular instance, whatever this is. But that's kind of how it is with everything right now. No matter what, like, sure, we may not have any different feelings towards Kanye West than what we had the last time we talked about him, but we haven't talked about him at all because he hasn't come up in the news.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
If he comes up in the news and is something supremely relevant to what we're talking about, then we're going to bring that back, but we're not talking about it because it's not something to talk about, because there's so many other things to talk about. I'm just making a side point. I agree with you guys are saying, except for the Candace Owens things. I don't think she's a good actor in anything.
Good actor.
Yeah, she's a grifter. There's an angle.
Oh no,
there's an angle. There's an angle. That's all I'm saying.
I mean,
if I study this, there's
always an angle.
There's always an angle.
There's always an angle.
Always an angle. But
I was going. I had to give her a flower. I gave her a flower on that.
I know there's an angle, because once again, this is one thing, and Candace Owens has been a part of public discussion for a couple of decades now. Maybe not that long. I don't know. It seems like you've been around for way too long, but.
Not that long. About 5 years.
Oh, that's
longer than that, ain't it?
No, it's long. Yeah, but
it's longer than that, ain't it?
Not really. Candace Owens?
Yeah, it got to be longer than 5 years long.
No.
5 years is done gone. 5 years
since like Trump. Maybe a decade.
I remember Candace Owens talking crazy before Trump even showed up on the scene politically.
Yeah, it got to be longer
I'm
than 5.
I'm going to Google
bro.
this because she hasn't been relevant until recently.
Once again, relevant is different. You know, Tammy Laren at one time was relevant.
You're around the same time, though. Yeah.
I'm gonna say over 5 long.
And plus,
it's definitely over 5.
And plus, you can always, you can, you know,
it's irrelevant.
One of the quickest way to get into some sort of media space now is if you're a black person willing to talk bad about black people.
There you go.
Yep. See Jason Whitlock.
Hold on. Did
Stacey Dash tried it.
She tried, yeah, because she was like, you know what? I have to get behind about 50 other people if I want to be. Let me go ahead and start. I'll be one of the Republican spokespeople.
There you go.
I'll be able to get on and people will talk about me. And then, like, once they had no more use for her, we haven't heard from Stacey Dash since.
Ain't heard from her since. That's facts.
Not till she said she didn't know that DMX had passed with her dumb ass.
Yeah.
That was stupid, wasn't it?
Yeah, real stupid.
That was stupid.
But,
right.
you know.
She was born in 1989, so it hasn't.
She's a Swiftie.
Yeah.
I see what you did there. Yeah, I see what you did.
I mean,
it says 2018, but I remember her before that. But then again, I pay more attention than most people do.
But also,
I would agree.
yeah, but also it's like I also remember seeing an interview because like she always was on the other side of oh no. Affirmative action, that is bad, it's bad. But then, like when she needed some help, you can go into her history. Like she voted for President Obama, I believe, twice. But like there was no money on that side.
It was Trump era after.
Trump era,
no money on that side.
All this stuff, the story about
shout out to Tim Scott who rented a white woman for absolutely no reason.
Yeah, to only drop out.
Yeah.
I don't know. Let's stay on Tim Scott because